Right. Yep. I think live stream has started now. Okay. So thanks a lot, everyone who's joining us live today. Welcome to Two Studio Heads Walk into a Bar. This is a space for small creative services, independent consultants, freelancers, studios, to discuss the hard part of our work, which is how do we run a business, and the subject of business, different topics that involve business. uh, and that too particularly in the Indian context, because we realize there are very few spaces where designers, developers, and typographers and other creative professionals get to talk about the business side of things. uh, I am Sovik. I run Miranj, which is a small strategic web design and dev studio based out of New Delhi and Cambodia. Along with me, we have three more people in the room. Let's start with a quick round of introductions. First, Tejas.
Hi everyone, I'm Tejas. I run a small design studio called Three Sided Coin. And if you have seen the previous episodes, you know me already. If you don't, please go and see those videos. Thanks.
All right. The next up is Rahul. We met Rahul last time in our previous show. Rahul, a quick introduction from your side.
Hi guys, I'm Rahul Beniwal. I am an independent designer and I've been doing independent work since 2016. I primarily work on startups, work with startups on just the intersection of design and business.
Oh, excellent. And we have a surprise guest today. Every single time there's this one new person who pops up at the last minute before the show starts, and we are so happy about that. We have Tanya. Tanya, thanks for joining us. Please introduce
Yeah,
yourself.
so happy to be here. I'm Tanya George. I'm an independent designer too. My practice is kind of wide ranging. It ranges from type design to some graphic design. There's some research in there. And I'll probably get into it a little bit more later in the show as well.
All right, thanks a lot for the introduction. I'll remind everyone who are joining us live, as well as if you're watching us on our recording. Uh, we do these conversations every alternate weekends on Saturday mornings. And in case you want to suggest topics for us in the future, or if you want to be a participant in our conversations, please reach out to us through our Twitter. Our Twitter handle is Two Studio Heads. Uh, Today's conversation is about how do we find new work, or how do we make new work find us, because when we are running a small services company, we constantly need new clients, new projects to engage with us, so that we there is a business opportunity and we are always doing something interesting, or at least something that is paying us. And this itself is probably one of the hardest questions everyone faces, especially when they are starting out, and surprisingly when they have been in the business for about 10 years as well. so so we thought, why don't we take this as a conversation, and discuss among at least four different people who are probably at four different stages of running a small business. So let's start with you, Tejas, and the first question I just want to open up for everyone is, how did you find your first work? And I would also add an associated thing with it. Did you find your first work and then decided to start the business, or did you start your business and then looked for your first work? So Tejas, let's start with you.
Uh, no, so when I found my very first work, I just needed something. It wasn't really with the decision that this was going to turn into a business. It was just that I need some money, so I need to do something. And then someone introduced me to like creating HTML, CSS websites, right? Or probably it was also integrating in WordPress, and I knew nothing of those, but I just took a stab at it. Someone who was a friend's brother had an e-commerce site that they needed design, and I just took a stab at it. Like found a few cousins who knew how to code, and like together we did that first website for like I think 5,000 rupees. So yeah, that was my first ever work.
Right. So did the work find you in some way, or did you have to hunt for this connection? How did that story happen?
No, this was like typical friends, brother kind of a thing. So we already knew each other. We were talking about e-commerce, etc. And I might have sounded like I knew things. So
Okay.
he decided to give
And
it to
what was
me.
your profession at that point of time?
I was laid off from my job, so my profession was hunting for jobs.
Okay. Perfect. All right, so that's a decent start, organic start to getting your first job. Rahul, how did you find your first job?
So, two things in common with Tejas. One is friend's mother. So one of my friend's mothers was starting a online brand, and at that time I was just like starting to get into design. I had completed my engineering, and I didn't really know much about design to begin with. So I actually did a branding project for them. I made my first logo, and yeah, I think I got paid. The other thing in common was that I also got paid about 5,000 rupees for it, and that really honestly I don't think that I necessarily needed the money at that point, but it gave me the confidence to like you know be aware that I could like go out independently and like make money and get projects. So after that I just kept up and like did small projects along the way, but like I kept doing that.
All right, so both of you were like independent right from the beginning. Not did not have any co-founders or anyone helping you out in this.
No, so at that point honestly, Matlab, I don't think that even the notion of independent existed in my mind. Like
Got
I
it.
didn't have a design job or anything. I was just sort of like out in the wild west trying to figure out ki, can I make this gig stick? So yeah, like that was just like it just came to be and managed to execute it somehow or the other. I
All
remember
right, so
sweating bullets midway through the project because I was like, no, I can't do this. What have I done? What have I taken up? And then somehow the next draft came together. They liked what I put together, and it just like yeah, like that loop was completed in my brain. So I was like, okay, there's
all right,
So
so
something.
you
friends
switched
and family for
from
both of you. Yeah, Tanya.
engineering to design, like
Yeah,
after doing.
after
Wow.
completing my engineering, I mean, I think it was a late realization that this is not going to be it for me. So once I completed my engineering, fortunately, the placement that I had gave me some time off between completing my degree and joining them. So in that
Okay.
time, I started looking around, and I was like, what can I do? What interests me? Late in the day to be asking that question, but finally I did, and fortunately, I found an answer in the right time.
Not too late, Rahul, not too late. And
Yeah.
there's just so many people. Like I myself an engineer, and my business partner also is. And from engineering moving into design or design oriented and other creative profession is a common pattern I think I'm seeing
Hmm.
around me. That's a
That's
thing
because
that keeps
90% of
happening.
us do engineering only, right? It's like after
Yeah,
school,
we
you
get
find
pushed
your
on to
career.
it.
It's the same.
Yeah, three idiots. No, मेरा बेटा
Hmm.
engineer बनेगा.
हाँ.
All
पहले
right.
बन जाओ फिर सोच लो.
Okay, so let's move on to Tanya. Tanya, did you have a different story? How did you start off, and what was the first work that you got? Did you start your own business after you got that work, or the other way around, that you got that work and then decided to stick out?
So the first job that I got making sort of made money off was to sell portraits to people around me. I was in design school at this point, and it was very small money, but it was deeply satisfying. And also, I was like, wait, I get paid to do this. And there on after design college, I went and got an actual job that, paid me monthly money, which worked really well for about 4 years. After which I decided I wanted to step away and do a master's. And I sort of given myself a year to figure things out. And within that year, once I quit this job, um, and I was like, I need to sort of figure out how to make money. This previous job that I was working at, they approached me, and there were a lot of projects that I'd been working on for a couple of years. I had a rapport with the client as well, so they brought me on as a sort of on a contract basis, basically, and that sort of began my freelance career. Yeah, and it was on that job actually that where I was a designer, but I was also interacting with clients, and I was very good at that. In fact, I remember when I was quitting that job, my boss said that I know you're quitting as a designer, but do you want to come back and join as a business as a project manager? And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. But I realized I had the skill set to sort of, do a lot of these roles. And I kind of enjoyed, being my own boss, but also making so much more money doing the same job that I was doing for them, in house. And all of those things sort of fell in place, and that began my own sort of independent practice.
All right. Okay. So this is a different story. This is not a typical friends and family story. It's like you're doing a job and then you move and then your previous client approaches you that you want to do this thing and
Yeah,
such a thing. So you already had some relationship built before you started your current practice. Basically, the practice that you're doing right now at this point in time.
yeah. Right
You
now,
already
it's
had
very different from what it was back then. Um, I mean, in between, I got a master's degree, which sort of changed the focus of what all I was doing. And my those clients back then was the company that I was working for previously, and not the end clients
yeah.
itself, which was, I was very happy with it at that time, but that was more design focused. And my master's that I did the year after that was, I got to sort of do a master's in typeface design, which then sort of allowed me to specialize and dive deeper into this one particular topic. And that's where my practice currently is, with where the type is at the center of it, but there's like lots of different branches I get to practice, like interact with it in.
Right. If you don't mind me asking, this first thing that you got, was it a long gig or was it this small 5,000 rupee gig that the other two folks had got? Was it like something that assured you that, yeah, okay, I can do this for a while?
Oh, it was definitely not 5,000 rupees. I think it would have been, it was billable hours, and that would have been easily about 40,000, which was
Okay.
a month's salary for me at that point when I left that place.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it worked out the billable hours just for that one project that I would, when I was working in that company, that was just one of the many projects I did. And just this
Hmm.
one project, billable hours suddenly paid my monthly salary that I was making at that place. And I was like, wait, this is great. How do I do more of this?
This is nice, but I think in this conversation I'm going to win the race, because our in my case I was also doing a job before I started the web design studio that I'm working on right now, and I had decided that I am going to quit that job and I was going to start with my current business partner. And all that was already made up in my mind. I had already filed my papers for to leave that job. The organization knew that Savik is not going to stick. They just helped me get out of the company in a month or so. That short notice period. But a colleague of mine in that organization, and I had no idea where do we get work from at that point of time. We just knew that we want to be making websites and nothing else. Had no idea where we'll get our work from. And a colleague approached me and said that her friend was starting a company or something like that and needed a website. It turned out to be not just a website but a web app, in a way, very a transactional, almost a UI UX plus the backend kind of a job. And we do tech side of it, we do the front end as well, so we could take up the entire job as well. And the conversation just luckily matured. I mean, obviously not all conversations matured, but that was the first conversation that I was having, first serious conversation I was having. There were a few others that people said that just talk to this person, very casual things, just talk to this person, nothing was maturing anywhere. But this one conversation matured to the point that I think it paid the bills for 2 3 months, the first 2 3 months. So which would be, uh, at that point of time, I would say it would be easily around like 80 90,000 or a lakh or something like that, in that range, because it would take that many months. Eventually what that project itself did was it kind of stretched to about 5 months or 6 months or so. So our initial start was kind of covered by this one project. That's how I had started off. So a colleague, not friend and family, but a colleague had referred me to the first job that we had done. Okay, so moving on. In case any of you have any counter questions or anything that you want to
I
ask, feel free to ask. Yeah.
do want to ask Tejas, like, were you like well versed with putting together a website when you got your first gig, or did you like learn along the way?
No, I just learned along the way.
Hmm.
I had no idea how what even design meant or anything. I just overpromised to someone else because I felt like I needed the money. And
Hmm.
then,
Hmm.
okay, now let's figure out, oh, there is something called HTML and there's CSS that you need to write. It was more like that.
Right.
Uh, it was slicing a PSD into a website, not even designing it.
Hmm.
If
Hmm.
you
Hmm. Hmm.
remember, like there used to be PSD to HTML thing back then. It was one of those things.
Nice.
Tejas, it's still a thing today. I can't believe it. There is, and I'm lucky to not be a part of that anymore. But I still come across people who are still doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have done something that was quite timeless, basically. Okay, so let me take the next question and open up this thing in even a little bit more, and let's start with you, Tanya. So after you got your first job, tell us a little bit about how your personal journey has been in terms of finding new work. So how or also maybe you can start with how long have you been doing this, your current practice, how long has it been?
2014, so about 7 years now.
7 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
perfect. So 7 years is a very long time. So if you have been doing this for 7 years, you have definitely had to get more new work along the way. The first job did
yeah,
not sustain it. So
for sure.
how what are the different paths and channels have you explored to find new work? How did new work keep finding you for 7 years? So can you walk us through that a little bit?
Sure. So the 7 years, I mean, technically it's kind of 6 years because after that first year of doing that was more of a freelance thing where I took whatever came my way. I then went and did a master's program, which was a year-long thing, and that was a master's in typeface design. So I was a designer at large previously, and I came back and I had this very specific skill set. Um, and I came back to India and I was trying to figure out who wants a master's in typeface design. Like, where do I sort of pitch myself to? And I quickly realized that I have to sort of make sense of this master's program. I have to, no one really knows what this program is about. I have to educate people as to what my skill set is and how I could benefit them. And it's taken me a while to sort of come to where I am right now. It was not like I came back and I was like focused and I figured it out. It started out with some amount of teaching gigs, which led to some amount of networking. It sort of then blossomed into something called Type Walks, which is an extension of teaching, but also like exploration. It's a very weird space, which also led to networking, but also allowed me to do a lot more research into a subject in a very non-academic way. And all of these things sort of checked some boxes for me. The research that I did also then fed back into the type design work that I like to do. So my independent designs, my own designs, I could like play around and have all these different inspirations. And then typeface design work itself um, happened more on a contractual basis where other people, other foundries would sort of get in touch with me to sort of extend work that they've already started. So it's a sort of it's not like graphic design. I mean, to draw parallels to graphic design, it would be like someone sets the design style and you're extending it to other collaterals. But there are also a lot of technical aspects in making the italic version of an upright design or extending it to another script. So then I got pulled in for those kinds of jobs. And because I still enjoy identity work a lot, I still took up a lot of those kinds of projects, which were purely identity work and maybe applications onto certain things, which then allowed me to work with type as well. So it was this sort of multi-pronged thing. I had my finger in a lot of pies, and they sometimes fed each other, but it just created an environment where I enjoyed these different things that I wanted to do, and I sort of thought of ways of telling people how I could sort of help them do what they were doing better, which would also sort of leverage my strong points, if that makes. Does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
if I would summarize these things, so
Hmm.
so you did a lot of networking through the different events that was there.
Yeah.
Then somehow Type Foundries found you. How did they find you? Because of
Um,
these events?
uh, Events, yes, but Twitter.
Twitter. Okay,
Strangely
so
enough, yeah, Twitter's been actually a great place for me to find type design work. I've two of the sort of kind of larger projects that I worked on. People put up a tweet, I responded to them, and that's how I got these jobs. There have been Instagram's not been that great, but honestly, Twitter has been amazing for me to sort of find leads and sort of follow up on them. Then it sort of moved to email. It doesn't all happen on Twitter, but Twitter has been a great environment for me
so
that way.
basically you discover an opportunity on Twitter and you followed up. Basically
Yeah.
those were the way you did it. And how did the identity design clients find you?
That's been a mixed boat. Some of them found me through Instagram. There's been only one. There have been couple of examples where Instagram has worked, but mostly I don't love Instagram for work. Whoever reaches out to me, mostly whoever reaches out to me on Instagram is not going to follow through on it. Like I don't really put my hopes in that. But Instagram has got me stuff. Word of mouth has got me stuff. Uh, People coming on my type walks have heard me speak about identity, because a lot of times I get to speak about signboards and there's a lot of identity of the shop over there, and I'm extremely passionate, and by that I mean I rant about stuff that really pisses me off. So one of the stops on my type walk is in front of the Fendi showroom and the Christian Louis Vuitton showroom, and they're terrible Devanagari versions of the design on that storefront. So over there, people get to see how deeply invested I am in all of this. And I think that also gets them to think about how they could maybe do better if they own a business, or if they, own something that has a visual identity. And that's translated to a couple of jobs. Yeah, it's super weird, and like it's really hard to draw these connections. But I should say that one thing that has served me really well is in my first job, my first ever, like I was fresh out of college and I was put onto the team in that company that went and pitched for work. So I was working with people higher up in the company who were 20 years older than me and who were sort of figuring out these large companies to pitch with, and not just smaller agencies, but they were pitching to mattress companies and really businessy companies. And it sounded like terrible work because I was essentially designing on PPT.
Hmm.
But it allowed me to sort of see how their brain functions and how they sort of broke down a pitch, because they then had to give it to us newbies. Our team was full of first year, like just freshly graduated students, and they would break it down in a way that we could consume and then translate into a visual output. And I think at that point I didn't appreciate it, but some bits of it have stayed with me, and I sort of been able to use parts of that in the way I sort of translate my skills to other people.
Oh wow, that's really
Very
nice. I
interesting.
think
Yeah.
I think all designers do this, right? Take a big company or a big organization, take their interfaces, redesign it for them, and then you suddenly hit a level of popularity, and that people start noticing you. Is that something that, Rahul, have you ever done? Just checking, and also tell us about your personal journey with this. What
No,
has been
so
yours?
to start off, no, I've actually never done that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think honestly in the design community there's such mixed opinions about doing that, that like I've in that sense I've stayed away. Like in my head or in my personal design file, I might have played around with a few interfaces, but never to the point where I put them out. For me, honestly, like I mentioned, like I started off with that 5K job, and after that, I never stopped freelancing really. So I just kind of, even though I did two jobs after that, like in fact, my first job at Zomato started off as a contractual gig. So they had hired me to do some icon work for them that then translated into a full-time job. But even that was, in a sense, like I think a precursor for things to come. And so the entire time I was working there, even the job after that, I kept freelancing. And honestly, like for me, the major channel has always been word of mouth. So like I told you guys, like I've never had a publicly available website. I'm not super active on Twitter. I don't really put my work on Instagram. And so it's always been word of mouth. And like I think part of having that flywheel generate enough leads is me not saying no to any work that comes my way. Like for the first few years, I genuinely, like I used to just treat everything like, just a opportunity to learn, and maybe like in some cases an opportunity to like client manage, an opportunity to negotiate, an opportunity to just push the envelope. And having done that, like I think that I ended up working with enough people, like especially in my jobs, fortunately, like I said, like Zomato for that time was a really good team to work with, and everybody's gone on to do such great stuff that like that association has really paid off. And I think that like for me, word of mouth has really worked, man. Like I've had this, like designers are constantly talking about their portfolios. It's our Moby Dick, really, right? Like that's what we're chasing the entire time. But uh, I frankly, like I have never needed a portfolio. I don't I don't know what to, like, and the thing with word of mouth honestly has been, I think, like what Tanya said, right? Like how on Instagram you get dude, I have needed it in the sense that I need it for my own mental peace. Like at this point I'm just like, dude, when are you going to get this done? But regardless, no, like how Tanya said, right? Like how Instagram gets you these leads. So that's usually been my experience with word of mouth, that I get like super quality leads, because whoever comes to me has come to me by reference of somebody I've worked with in the past. So even if the conversations don't eventually pan out, which happens more often than you would expect, but like for a variety of reasons as well, right? Like sometimes projects just move around and stuff, but like the quality of lead has been pretty high. So people come in with a fair amount of trust, they come in with a fair amount of understanding of what you've already done for somebody that they know. So there's not a lot of back and forth on whether you can do what they're expecting you to do beyond like talking about the project. And even like in terms of your pricing, there you don't have to convince them that okay, this is my rate. They know that okay, that's a rate that somebody they know has already paid, and they're happy with the results enough to like refer this person to you. So that actually has sort of counterintuitively, I suppose, worked really well for me. And other than that, like, so I have a bunch of designer friends who also worked independently. So initially they were very like instrumental in me getting like more work. I started off doing a lot of like branding and graphics work and visual design work. So yeah, like those guys really pushed, and like we all ended up collaborating a lot of on a lot of projects as well. So work just sort of like kept coming, and that sort of was something that I wanted to ask everyone as well. Like, do you guys actively pursue projects? Like, an example of that would be like almost to the point of pitching, or like are you just like working and passively like things keep coming your way and you pick and choose what you want?
Tejas, why don't you take that question and also
No.
connect your own journey?
So to answer this first, because then I'll forget
Yeah.
what the question was. uh, we don't really pitch yet. We don't pitch
Mm.
yet. We have thought about maybe tailoring some of our work, or maybe coming up with ideas, and this has been a running theme for a long time. Like something I've been thinking about a lot for a long time, never really executed. Is uh, if we can, and what we do is we always list a sort of create an internal wish list and also publish a wish list on the website, that these are the things we are looking to, we are prioritizing working on for this year or the next 2 years or so. So we have something like that, and then we think about, like, for a very long time we've been thinking about, can we do something that would immediately become attractive to these industries. Like we do it at a, either at an industry or at a goal level, and like, can we do something that immediately attracts the attention of the people we want to work with. So that's what we have been thinking about a lot without doing a lot into it. It's probably we started to some concrete steps only now, but no, we haven't done any active pitching so far. even in the worst of the times, we kept thinking about it and never really did it.
Hmm.
uh, in terms of journey, so initial work, all the work we got was like, one was this first project which came through someone we knew. uh, Beyond that, I was not really confident about how to grow a business in the initial years. So we signed up on this website called, I signed up, like we didn't even have a team then. I signed up on this website called Odesk. I think they've changed their name now. It's a freelancer, like place where you get freelance gigs. So we started getting work from there, and they also have a policy where, or they used to have a policy there where they wouldn't have Indian clients on the, so it would always come from someone in US, someone starting something really small. So the second gig I got was like $200, which was 100% increase from my previous work, the one I did for 5,000. So I was like, okay, this works, right? So first 3 years we kept getting work from there. Like we went from being a like one person team to having couple of developers on the team, like 3 or 4 people company in the first 3 years. Mostly getting work either from Odesk or someone in, some friend whose colleague wanted a an app or something, like things like those. Uh, I did not actually create. I was, like I said, I was very underconfident on the business side. I was overconfident on my design skills and very underconfident about my business skills. So never really created a network of people. I didn't even know, like I was following a lot of people on Twitter, but I knew, never even considered that these are the people I could reach out to. Like I can actually communicate with these people, right? I was like, okay, they tweet, you consume it, that's it. Never even thought that you could reply to those people also, and it's not going to be end of the world. So until I think late 2012, 2013, we didn't really create any network of designers. Like I didn't have other designers who knew me or whom I knew, anything like that. But we are getting work from like Facebook groups. There was a Facebook group at that time called startups or startup founders or something. So become part of that and probably reply to all the comments like, hey, you want something done, we can do it, something like that. It was like terrible, proper business development mindset that we were doing. So yeah, but then since 2013, a lot of people came to know, or decent amount of people came to know about us and our work, and then it has mostly been through referrals. But we have used, even since then, we have used services like not Odesk, but there's another one called TopTel. We have used their services to get some work until say like 2 years ago.
Okay, so you have been putting yourself on these different platforms, and also wait. Today I learned there's a platform that says we'll not have any Indian clients.
I think TopTel still has that. Like they don't,
Wow,
yeah, they don't have projects from. It might be a legal thing or something like that. They don't have. If you are an Indian company, you cannot go and find freelancers on TopTel.
this
So
That's
sounds
interesting.
quite weird,
yeah,
uh, and surprisingly discriminatory. But on the flip side, I know that Indian clients have this. There is a stereotypical thing that Indian clients are not great. There is that thing, although we work largely, our maximum projects is within the local community with Indian clients only. Very few we work internationally. We do notice some cultural differences as well. That all that is there, but completely to shut it out feels like a little extreme.
I,
uh,
I feel it's something legal more than an attitude. Like it's not that they want to, because it's a huge business for them, right? More than
Hmm.
anything else, it's a huge business they are turning down. So it might be a legal thing. Also, the fact that a lot of transactional platforms in India get banned very quickly, and like the rules change very quickly. Like one day PayPal would be working, then next day government would put some sort of restrictions on PayPal. So it might be a lot of things. I'm not privy to the reasons, but
okay.
until the last time I used it, they wouldn't have Indian companies as clients on their. Uh,
All right,
Okay.
that's very interesting. I had a question for Rahul before I go on to a little bit of my thing.
Hmm.
You focused a lot around word of mouth and the benefits of that. All right. So
Hmm.
in the sense that I completely get it. If you have a
Hmm.
word of mouth, then people will trust you. They'll not negotiate on the pricing. They'll be like, please do my work. You have come from a great recommendation. But what
Hmm.
do you do to actually make that word of mouth happen? Because that's one part. The other part is that have you actually had a team to manage in a way, or were you mostly just taking projects for yourself as an independent? Because at some level, my notion or my thinking is that word of mouth has its own limitations in terms of you can get enough for yourself, but you may not be able to get enough for if you're running a team. That's that dude. So these two questions, Rahul.
Right. So, first off, like, um, I'll tackle the team question first. So the largest team that I ever actually worked with was when we were doing Tandem, and with Tandem, the way we had structured it was that only Juhi and I were the two permanent employees. We only really ever had to look out for each other's, salary, I suppose. And every time we had a project, we would bring somebody on board to work with us on the project, depending on what the project required, right? Whether it was a researcher or whether it was an illustrator. So in that sense, it helped. Like, we didn't have anybody else, and that was part of how we thought about it. Like, it uh, saved us from having to think about a consistent overhead. Like, we just had to, like, once we had a project and once we had some sort of a surety of a payout, we could, like, bring people on board and help them out as well and help the client out as well. And at the same time, like, um I would say that, like, for us, honestly, like, it never dried up, Souvik. Like, like, if it never became an issue, honestly. Like, if we ever did get a month or two, like, let's say a couple of weeks of, like, downtime, it was welcome. It wasn't that, we were, like, stressed out about it or anything of that sort. We were just like, chalo, theek hai, chutti mil gayi. Let's take some time off. No issues at all. And not having that overhead in that sense really helped. The second thing, the first thing that you mentioned about keeping the word of mouth going, like, as cliched as it sounds, like, just doing good work, right? Like, you make sure that you, like, you deliver decently, you maintain a decent client relationship, you don't give them the troubles that they would normally see with. And it's not to say that I've been perfect in all my client relationships, but, like, you can very easily see, like, the ones that, where you have a good synchronization, like, you have a good client on the other end, and you are also, like, delivering your best and everything is working well. Like, there have been certain clients or certain people that I've worked with that have delivered a lot more projects at my doorstep than others have. Certain clients and projects, I've never heard from them again. So, yeah, like, as cliched as it may sound, like, doing good work and, like, also identifying your client, right? Like, after a certain point, it becomes about, like, understanding that, okay, like I said, I initially would say yes to everything that came my way. I was just like, okay, like, opportunity. But after a point, I realized that, like, identifying and filtering at the doorstep myself, like, I treated everything like an opportunity, but I realized eventually that it wasn't, right? Like, and being able to filter certain clients out, make sure that you have that, like, happy end result for everyone that will then yield more results from it. But if you get one of the bad guys on board, and I mean, no, he's a bad guy, but, like, yeah, if you get one of those guys on board, then you're eventually just going to run into a point where you're frustrated, the other clients are, nothing's going to come of it. So in that sense, like, yeah, like, just finding that sweet spot and making sure that you have somebody like that. And yeah, and honestly, some of it is just serendipity, right? Like, most of it is, like, in sometimes just out of my control. I don't know who's going to get what, and who's going to have access to more projects in the future. Some people might seem at the onset that, okay, especially international clients, a few times that I've worked with somebody internationally and had the project go really well, I always thought that that would be a beachhead, right? Like, to get more projects, they would talk in the community and I would maybe get more projects from there. But in some cases that hasn't worked out. And then, like, certain people that I've worked with in the most ancillary of ways, right? Like, I'm working with a client, they have somebody on their team who's seen my work, and they have then subsequently, been in touch with somebody else and then reached out, and then that has ended up, like, yielding more work. So there's no prediction to what's going to go right. Like, you just, I don't know. I just suppose you, like,
You can only
I said,
join
like,
the dots looking backwards.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you just put your best whenever you can and however you can, and just hope it all works out. Like. So yeah, that's
okay. Before I talk about my journey, just a public good announcement. If you are starting out at this point of time, make good friends with Rahul. He has a great network.
I have a question for Rahul.
Yes, Tanya.
Too as well. you mentioned when you were talking about your process that some of the opportunities that come your way are opportunity to negotiate, to practice negotiation. Could you talk a little bit more about that? That was uh,
So, like in certain, I mean, there are many ways in which that's happened, but like a typical example is usually like when a client reaches out to you and you know that whatever you're even the lowest that you're comfortable offering, they're not going to bite on it. Like you just know, right? Like with certain clients, you just know that they've come thinking
yeah,
that they're going to get something. So in those situations, there are a lot of like there are a lot of different strategies to sort of play. So like I choose one and I'm like, okay, I haven't ever tried this one before, and so then in some cases, like I'll just pitch a number that I know is going to be unpalatable to them, right? And then maybe like talk to them about a little bit, see how far it goes. Obviously, it can get really frustrating for your own self because you're investing time into the whole thing, but like it enables me to see like what makes a client's livers move, right? Like what can I really say or do to like communicate value. So in one instance, like there was a Pune based company itself that had reached out to me, and like from the very onset I saw their product and I met their team and stuff, and I knew that they're not going to they don't see enough value in the whole thing, right? So then in that instance, like I spent some amount of time like communicating value. Like I was like, okay, we can do this and XYZ, and we've seen results like having done this before, and if you're looking at these sort of numbers, then doing so will like improve your numbers. Standard stuff, right? And like by the end of it, uh, I had actually honestly I had also moved on because I wasn't expecting that lead to pan out. But that founder was like very, very, very interested in working together, and he ended up like following up with me for weeks afterwards to see when I would get free. And I don't know what the number would have finally landed on, and it wasn't entirely about it. Like I knew that the quality of work also wouldn't be very high, so which is why I wasn't very keen on taking it on. But that sort of was like one of those experiments, and otherwise like just negotiation is fun sometimes. Like you just get to see how far you can like push people.
yeah.
So negotiation, interestingly, is one of the topics I want to do in a future show. Tejas, what do you think about it? I think that was there in the internal list that hey, we don't know how to negotiate. I mean, we have learned a few things over 10 years, but still there's so much to learn in this topic. So yeah, very very interesting. But really, you wouldn't put in that much effort if you yourself don't want to do that project, right, Rahul? Like
Yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah.
sense that
Yeah.
the only reason you would be putting in that effort is otherwise you would simply say no, given that you already have so many people reaching out to you anyways, and that
Yeah,
why invest so much time in this
Yeah.
in that case.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like
So
it depends. Like sometimes you see. I mean, even in this case, I saw some benefits pertaining to. I think parts of the conversation that we had last time. So I thought that it would just be like interesting to see what you could get out of it, right? Like honestly, like I'd walk in with not a lot of like expectation. Like they say in negotiation, right? The second you are tied to some sort of a result, that's when you lose, right? Like so you have to be a little flexible, a little bit like just open ended. So you just count the apples on the tree, and whether they all fall or whether you get one or two or whatever it is. But it's just like a freewheeling space, really.
yeah.
I don't know.
Also, the
All right,
fact is
okay,
that,
so
uh,
yeah, go on.
sorry, yeah, like negotiating a very high number just to
Hmm.
get out of that engage or get out of that conversation can also be counterproductive, because what if they
Very,
agree?
very, very. That's the worst.
Right? Like, what if they agree? Because then you're like, oh my god.
I've also thought this, like put a very high number. So we have started saying no in most cases when we know we don't want to work. Only when we know that we won't mind the money, and that in that case is nothing about the clients. It's all about the money.
Hmm.
That's when we'll try this high number case. Otherwise, we'll just say no. because because really there have definitely been cases clients paying very high but being terrible clients, so that also is not a great place to be in. So in this conversation, let me just quickly walk through my journey a little bit and touch upon a few things that we have not discussed so far, the things that have not come out over here, and then move on to the next few questions. So my journey of running Nirans, the first one I just said, there was a colleague who referred me to the first project and all. There is friends and family in the early days. They played a greater role in just connecting us to a few people, that maybe these people need money, or they run this small business, why don't you just make them a website, things like that. And there is always this chicken and egg problem also of like, do you have a portfolio enough to actually convince someone to that you deserve that project initially. So we have had a few of these things, that how do we get the first set of projects. Now a few things that I remember is, we went to these small meetups called Startup Saturdays, that would happen in Delhi, and also probably in other cities in India, wherein startups would come in and they would be discussing their business thing, but then there will be this one designer and a few other people who are giving these business support services to the startups, and they will approach them and say that, okay, can you help us with this. So we have got one small gig out of that. Then there is obviously word of mouth and referrals that goes on. Then I think some of the things, a couple of things that I do remember were quite turning in a way, is participating in certain professional networks or communities that kind of make you exposed to more opportunities out there. So one of them was HasGeek, as an example, which started way back in around the same time. We were lucky that these guys were also starting around the same time. So the early events they did brought a lot of tech community, startup community, and all those, even design community together. So would attend their events, and that's how I got to meet Tejas the first time. And that's those events were also the things that made Tejas realize that you can actually talk to the people who you are following on Twitter. So I think that helped. The other was, like, I think through that community there were few good professional acquaintance friends that you make up, which becomes a long term relationship in a way. uh, Partly because there is a mutual respect for each other's work. Also, there everyone there are always times when you are looking out to collaborate, like what Rahul just said, that while running tandem, if you get a project, you want someone else to collaborate, and you know your skill sets are limited, and you know that someone else can help you with that, so you just naturally reach out to them. So Tejas being one of them, and there are a few other very good designers now. I have a lot of regard for all the work that these people do, who I was lucky enough to be friends with them, or be at least in contact with them, who would refer us to other projects or future projects, especially if they cannot do it themselves. They would just pass it on to people around you. So that has been a good thing. Then other conferences, I think just to put word out there, speaking at conferences would have helped in our line, because again, that kind of makes a lot of people know about you, and then there'll be some conversations. But I must add, though, it has started conversations, but it may not have concluded in directly a sale happening. So a lot of things will just be start off a conversation, but there'll be a case like, they cannot pay, or they are not aligned, or no, I don't think this can work out, or they found someone else, and things like that would happen. But people would like to know that you're around through those things. We have never done things like signing up in these freelance portals like the Odesk and the Upworks and the freelancers. We have never. So I have no idea how does that community work. Although I believe, and maybe Tejas, you can answer this in ahead in the conversation. I've always imagined that if we are in that space, the rates that I see and the gigs that I see are too tiny, too small, too less impactful, too less meaningful. Always felt that I don't get to select it, and I don't even, and there'll be so much noise to deal with in. I'm assuming that I'll be famous in that place, that there'll be so many inquiries that I have to deal with 100 of them and reject 90 of them. I don't know if that actually works that way, but that's always my imagination, that people will keep contacting me for 5,000 rupee gigs basically, and I have to reject 95,000 rupee gigs to get the ones that actually fit me. And we have not done that. There's one more thing that we have tried, because we have consciously tried to do a lot of projects for non-profits. So I've often kept an eye out on this portal called the DevNet Jobs, which is called the developer network jobs. Over there, often large nonprofits often give out tenders and put out, so you can pitch for their tenders and stuff. And then tenders is a big category itself. So we have done a couple, never got it, and have had our own lessons to learn that never do tenders until you know someone who is inside. So otherwise, like, it's just so much draining, this entire process. So we have never done pitching though. And the other thing that would have, again, something that we have not done pitching, and something that we have not done in my journey is advertising, like giving social media ads so I know that there are organizations that will give their ads to reach out to their potential customer bases, who would in turn give them inquiries. We have never done that. So if any of you have experience in this, or in the next round of conversations, please let me know. Pitching, advertising, and the one thing that has definitely worked for us in the long run is collaborators, which is other designers, design studios and all, uh, getting a large project and reaching out to you, can you just do this piece out of that, and then we join to become a larger team to actually execute that project. That has kind of worked for us, I'd say. And we have an inquiry form on our website. That's like the most typical thing, that, and you dream that, hey, you put an inquiry form, people will reach out to you from there. So from the inquiry form, uh, I don't think I should attribute that this inquiry form is doing the trick, because the trick is being done whether I'm at a conference stage, or whether I'm at some other place, and then they reach the website and then they fill the inquiry form, or it might be a word of mouth or a referral, and they come and fill the inquiry form. But really, I feel that even though we have got, like, there's a reasonable cadence of just inquiries trickling in, the quality of that inquiry is not very high. So effectively, if there is an inquiry trickling in and the quality of that is good, then there's a very good chance that it has come through a good word of mouth or referral, which is why they actually took the pain to fill up the form. And to that extent, if I didn't have a form and I would have just had my email address, that also would have worked, basically. That's broadly what all the channels that we have explored. So I'm definitely curious about these things, like pitching, advertising, also social media is also something where I have done a few times, people putting out and I responding to it, but has never worked out for me that well. But the other way around has worked out, where someone puts up a job and someone else recommends us to them.
Hmm.
So it's like someone puts out the job, and then there is someone else who knows them and they connect us over Twitter. That has kind of worked for us, rather than me directly approaching the Twitter thing. Yeah, I think it kinds of sums up all the channels that we have explored. So coming to the next question, and I'll connect with this itself. So Tanya, if you can take this, uh, have you what's your current status, in the sense that have you reached any kind of stability in terms of, these are my comfort spaces, from I'm getting a reasonable amount of work that I'm happy with? What are those ones that you have settled with? And have you tried any of the things that I have just said that we haven't had a great success, or haven't tried it enough? Have you tried ads? Have you tried pitching? Have you tried tenders? Have you tried any of these channels? So just, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, last year was just, and I took the year to sort of evaluate a lot of things and figure out what it is that I really wanted to do, because it was just, I mean, we spent so much time inside and with ourselves. There was really no escaping that kind of rumination. And I sort of, I had gut feelings about certain things, that I enjoyed doing certain things more than other things. Um, for example, I mean, my income source was supremely diverse. I figured out there were like 5 different sources: just graphic design, type design, teaching, type walks, slash research, and writing. There are like these super different income sources, and I took that year to sort of figure out what it is that I really wanted to do more of, and how could I make money doing that. And so this year is more of translating what I figured out into how can I sort of reach that end goal. And that I realized will require some amount of pitching, some of it, which is what I've kind of started, is reaching out to possible collaborators, possible people I feel like I could work with, and trying to educate them about how I could do, because I mean, usually these people are people I follow on social media. We've had a informal interaction, and we like each other's work. At least I mean, I really like their work. I seem to sense that they do too. And because I sense a good fit, I will then say that, hey, I have this skill set. And these are things that I see I can do for you. Is this something that you're interested in? And I mean, this is still early stages of me doing that and figuring out, what will work, what won't work. But I see myself doing more of this because I want to do more of the kind of type design work that I've not really done, especially within India. And that also involves figuring out costing. How much are people going to be ready to pay for, type design job? I'm not a really large foundry. I'm a one person, so I will have limitations. But there are still services I can offer while me being a one person entity, and sort of figuring out, what works, what doesn't work. Pitching is definitely something I'm going to do more of, and I don't enjoy it, but I'm trying to figure out ways to make it more fun. Reach out to people that I think will be more interesting. I've done a bit of it in the past, which was not pitching for jobs, but more so applying for grants or fellowships and things like that, where I had to sort of build a CV that looked appealing for somebody to sort of give me the money or give me the time. And a lot of that didn't work out. Like I haven't got any grants, which would have been ideal. But it allowed me to think of how to sort of put myself out there for this particular instance, which is essentially what pitching is also. Only there's a more visual aspect to it. So that has kind of worked. Also asking people when it didn't work out, why it didn't work out. I think that's really been helpful for me. And it's not like I'm demanding an answer, but I'm like, this will be helpful for me. That why did you not decide to go ahead with this? Was it the money, or was it some other aspect? And that's been really helpful as well for me to sort of figure out what didn't work for them. I wonder if that would also work out the other way for clients that I do have. Maybe after a while, if I have a longer sort of relationship with them, I'd ask them what did work. Why do they keep coming back and figuring out what works over there as well? But yeah, more pitching definitely.
Oh, you're right. I got it. So you've now realized that you want to do a certain kind of work, so you have to take charge of what kind of things come your
Yeah.
way and create that thing. Yeah, that's a very important thing in a way. So if you don't put in that effort, Tanya, do you
Yeah.
think that the enquiries that will come your way, or things
Mm-hmm.
that will naturally happen out of word of mouth, or enough people would know you by 7 years? Although I've had people comment this to me, that enough people know you must have a steady stream of work, but that is never the case. So do you feel that if you don't put in this effort, you'll have a steady stream of work? And if you put in then if you're not putting in this effort, will you like that steady stream of work?
Uh, I think I would have a steady stream of work, but I have also been saying no to stuff purely because that was a cushion for me. And I need a little bit of motivation that if I'm not getting this money, I will then hustle a little harder towards other things that I really want to do. And I'm hoping to sort of find that balance in between. That if I say no to this, it's supremely scary, and I'm like, oh my god, have I made a complete mistake? And they're never going, no client's ever going to come back to me. But I think that's a good thing. Um, and I'm hoping that translates into me being able to put more of an effort towards other things that I do like. This also happens while I have a cushion of sorts. It's not like I have no savings and I'm doing this completely on a lark. There is some thought behind it. But saying no to things that I would have said yes, or I would have given an inflated quote, and if it came through, I would have taken up the job, is now a more clear no for me, so that I can sort of put time as well as effort towards these other projects.
Right. I think I have been like in our journey, we have swung between these two things many times. in terms of going into the state of mind. Yeah, I'll be like very super selective, and then reality hits you, and then you're like, okay, let me just relent, kind of thing. So I've definitely gone through these a few exercises. So I see where you're coming from, and if you succeed in that, that will be awesome to get the projects that you would really like to work on. Before I move to Rahul, why don't you take this one question that Prateek had asked, which is, why do you think Twitter works whereas Instagram leads seem to not be as reliable? What is can you answer this question?
Um, I feel like there is some amount of superficiality to Instagram. That sometimes, Twitter can be a lot more unvarnished. And I feel like people who are putting stuff out on Twitter, like, hey, does anyone know anyone who does something like this, is always a lot more, um, I don't know, real. Also, I mean, I usually, on Twitter, I have reached out to people or I have been recommended to people. On Instagram, it's usually been the other way around, where people will DM me, and then if someone DMs me on Instagram, as default setting, I will assume that they're not interested. Only when they follow up and reach out further, because my email is also in my bio, my website is also in my bio, and there are all these other modes that are more ideal, but they still insist on DMing, which is fine. Sometimes it's the fastest way to get to somebody. But usually, if within a message or two, like a little bit of interaction, they don't move it to email, I sort of know that that's not going to go anywhere. And now that I have that default setting there for me, I attribute it to some amount of superficiality. They like something, but they don't really know how much it will cost. Where Twitter people are, I don't know, more um, okay to be uninhibited and real about it. I've not really
Okay.
thought too much about it, but maybe someone else has
Okay.
views.
Tejas, let me
I,
take this to Tejas. Sorry, Rahul, you wanted to come in
Yeah,
about
sorry.
this?
I was while Tanya was speaking, it occurred to me. So Instagram is sort of optimized for discovery, right? Like whereas on Twitter we sort of had these the feed is very like you tailor your own feed really, right? Like it's not you don't have an explore tweets tab so to speak, right? Whereas Insta does have that, and I feel like a lot of people. Matlab, this is just a theory, but like that sort of makes the difference. Like people like happen upon Tanya's work and are like, oh, this seems cool. Let me ask, or like they just sort of satisfying that curiosity itch because it has just come across their way. Whereas on Twitter, it's a lot like you seek out that content or you're seeking out that person. So like I just feel like the intention on each of those platforms is so different that maybe that impacts
Maybe,
things.
I
yeah,
Yeah,
maybe the lack of visuals on Twitter, because Instagram you see the
yeah.
visuals up front. Twitter you sort of have to hunt for that a lot more. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think Twitter also has added these new discovery things, which I absolutely dislike because it has taken away the control from me. It's throwing these random tweets at me which I don't care about, and then I had to turn settings off. That okay, I just want to follow people I want to follow. But the visual thing is very interesting, and I've always believed that Instagram always shows this kind of this notion of things are happy, great, beautiful, visually appealing, and you are in a kind of a different mood when you are in Instagram as opposed to Twitter, which has enough depression, enough things, the real life, this enough call for help and this and that going on. And maybe there's a generational gap also, because I would trust Twitter a little more. I have started using it much earlier. Instagram has suddenly skyrocketed to be this high amount of visual energy and things. I've never been able to gel. So we've never created an account on Instagram and maintained it. So we just have a handle and nothing else. We're not there at all. But it seems that we are definitely missing out on a number of inquiries because of something like this. Probably. Let me take this to Tejas. Tejas, what do you think of this? And also follow it up with. Where do you stand right now? Are you in a comfortable space? What is working consistently for you to get your next gig?
So before I jump into that, Tanya, you are going to lose your followers very quickly today on IG after your comments. No, I think we are currently like I wouldn't say we have figured out anything at all. Like uh, and I realized after so many years to not really uh, judge the business pipeline from our current situation, which is like we are booked for a few months or whatever it is. I try to judge it from the last dry spell and what I was not doing at that time. So I judge it more by that, like what I was not doing, what I should have been doing at that time, so that the dry spell did not come at all, or we came over it very quickly. So I don't think I would be very confident. I don't know ever in that pipeline. Having said that, what having that full work, and if you are like Rahul mentioned, right, they as tandem and as a standalone designer, his hands have mostly been full, where a 2 or 3 weeks of gap comes as a relief more than a sort of place to worry, right? Because you know that you already have a network or something from which things keep coming. So when you are in that situation, you are allowed or you are able to focus on lot more things in terms of your business, uh, which I think is the best thing happening for us right now, because we have that business. We can think about how to grow it and other things, and not worry about where the next thing is going to come from. I also feel that after last year, what the market situation was last year, this year there's sort of a wave. So in any case, you shouldn't judge your business by the results this year, because there's already a wave. You're kind of, you might just be riding that wave and not really be very solid, have a very solid foundation. So that's also something I'm trying to be very mindful of, that this might be a wave and we are just reaping benefits of it, but as soon as this subsides a little bit, we may not be ready for it, so we have to be sort of prepared for it. uh, like we are trying to hire, so now imagine having 5 people. Drier spells are going to be even more terrible, right, with more people. It's, so we are kind of like, I as of now we are stable, but I see like the valley has, we just passed a valley recently, and I don't want to become too confident, too overconfident yet. uh, in terms of streams, it's still mostly word of mouth and the work we might have done for our clients. Surprisingly, I have not seen a lot of clients, new clients, refer to our old work as something like, oh, we really liked it. Now of late, like earlier, most of our work was like, oh, we saw so and so work, we really liked it, and which is why we are coming to you. Now it is more like XYZ referred us to you, and they might not have seen our work at all. Like
Hmm.
they are probably completely oblivious about our work, which kind of also, I mean, should be more comforting. But for me, that's a little bit disconcerting also, because then you have to tell them what your work is, and it is not, you may or may not be a great fit for them. That also keeps our scale of business development very low, because you normally expect your work to go out and speak for itself and like bring newer and newer opportunities to you. Then what you can, number of people you can, uh, even through social networks or everything, number of people you could personally reach, right? That reach is going to be probably much smaller than that. At least that's my assumption. So yeah, I would say like we are not currently, how it's coming from, it's mostly through referrals, but and I'm confident for the next 3 months, but not trying to be not too overconfident in it.
Yeah, I think I agree with you over there in the sense that earlier portfolio might have been something, oh, you have done this project or something like that, but off late it is more referrals. So word of mouth almost always is that someone gave your number. So there's a WhatsApp suddenly that comes in. Someone
Yeah.
gave your number. I'm like, okay, can we talk? And I don't even know what are they wanting to talk about. Like, is this for business? Is this for something else? I have no idea. And
Yeah,
then
yeah. Is this for a new
so
Vodafone
earlier
SIM
I
card or a
thought
loan?
portfolio is the way for my discovery, but
Yeah.
now I've realized that portfolio, like discovery, happens through these means, and then
Yeah.
I have to prove that we are actually good sometimes by showing our portfolio. That
Yeah.
is like, that's the not the first point of contact. So people are probably in a rush at this point of time. Whatever number I get, let me just go and reach out first, not even try to do a little bit of a Google to find out what have they done. No context, and people will reach out. And okay, this person has referred to me. Can you tell us, can you show some of your work? That's the first contact. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
but but that's definitely a trend that has changed from before.
Yeah.
I would agree.
But
Tejas.
this would also be a great point for a future conversation. Like, how do you build your brand sufficiently enough where people are also mostly seeking you out versus you trying to find the work?
Yeah, for sure. That should definitely be in one of the conversations in the future. Let me take this one question to you, Tejas. I already know Rahul's answer for this. Let me take. Have you felt that doing good work automatically means good business pipeline?
Not at all.
So we have two diametrically opposite views at the two corners of the screen. Tanya, let me take this to you. Do you feel doing good work has meant okay, wait. Before I come to Tanya, Tejas, have you ever felt you're doing good work?
No.
Okay, that's an imposter syndrome right there on your screens, everyone. So, so let me take this question to Tanya now. Not the second one, the first one, which is: do you believe that doing good work would automatically mean a good business pipeline coming your way, or do you feel that you have to put in some effort to make sure the pipeline is strong?
Um, I think I believe in the pipeline. I think doing good work, I mean, can only take you so far if nobody knows about that good work. And a lot of times in design, there is no authorship assigned to that good work. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be Instagram. It can be doing a case study about a typeface selection process that you did for a website that you designed. It can be a lot of different ways that you tell people about the work that you do. And I think that's important because a lot of times, even if something looks good, or even if it doesn't look as snazzy as it does, it is still good work. And to sort of break it down for a viewer as to why this was good work, what efforts went into it, all of that is important. And education is a big part of business generation. Without and this will happen when somebody reaches out to you and they say that show me some of your work. We're all inherently doing that. We're educating the client about what is it that we do, how well we do it, and how could we do it well for you. All of these things are answered when someone reaches out to us, and you can do it in many different ways. And I think that is important to get new business, no matter how good work you've done in the past. Yeah, I think it's essential.
All right, so I'll be doing one round of questions in the in over here, and then we'll go on to the audience questions. So, audience, if you have more questions, please type it out fast, and then we'll take those up. Uh, okay, so Rahul, you've already said that you've actually used the statement that doing good work is getting you more inquiries and things like that. But if I flip it around, have you never, like, it's such a disbelief, like I'm still not being able to digest this. Tejas can feel me over here, I think. Have you ever had a moment of long dry spell or a dry spell which has kind of been frustrating or been concerning for you, and if yes, what steps did you take at that point of time?
So, like with the good work thing, I'll just add like a little bit of a nuance there. Like, I don't think that good work automatically means a good business pipeline, but I think that that's the thing that will get you the closest to a better business pipeline, right? Like, you can do everything else and not have things materialize. So yeah, that's something that I did want to point out. Uh, Honestly, Souvik, I genuinely have like not had a long drive. I feel like I'm really jinxing myself here, but like maybe because I just never ever said no to work, there was always something coming my way. Like to a point where at a certain time, I remember I was juggling 3 projects and I was working with like a collaboration team at the same time, and there was a whole bunch of things going on, driving me completely nuts. Um, can
Can
you
I
hear me
tweak this
clearly?
question a little
Yeah.
bit? Yeah, I can
Yes,
hear you. Can I
please.
tweak this question a little
Yes,
bit, which
yes,
is,
of course.
while these inquiries are coming to you, have you always felt that the inquiries coming to me are the ones that I really want to work, or the flip side, are you opinionated about what kind of work you want to be doing?
So off late, I have become, and I think that that's sort of like the flip side of even what I meant. You know what I spoke about, like in word of mouth, like the intentionality of the kind of clients I would like to draw in. Word of mouth doesn't enable me to do that, right? Like it's sort of like whatever comes your way, you cycle through those options and then say that, okay, I want to do this or I don't want to do that. So that I think sort of like gets a little missed out over there. But other than that, honestly, it's to some degree it's just work, man. Like, man,
Okay.
I I
You're
really
doing it as
don't.
a profession.
Yeah,
It's work. I have to do this
that makes sense.
as a job, and
Yeah,
that's an
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah, and
fine
like
space
in
to be in.
yeah, and the lack of I think like the lack of trying to filter through mostly existed in the early stages of my career. Now, like I actively do say no to a lot of the work that comes my way. But like in the initial stages, like honestly, I think part of it was just switching from engineering to design. The fact that I didn't even have enough exposure doing so many projects, like for me, it was sort of like, A, I was getting an opportunity to educate myself, and like B, there was always just this fear that somebody would one fine day say that, okay, listen, you're not a designer, just like stop doing this. So I was just like, nay, 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 more work, more work, more work. So yeah, so that
Okay.
that that was yeah.
Got that. I think I've been a little lazy kind. I've never wanted to do too much work as well at any point of time. They just let's jam over this topic a little bit. Have you had moments of long dry spells? What were the immediate things that you might have done to like get out of it? And Tanya,
absolutely,
you can
man.
also chip in. Let me go to Tejas first, and then I'll come to you about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
Tejas.
no, no, absolutely. We have had that. Sometimes it's because of bad decision making. Like early on, you become a little bit choosy about what you want to do when you have that bandwidth. Uh, for the early inquiries, you become a little bit choosy, and by the time it's like 2 months and you're like, oh my god, now I definitely need the work, whatever it may be. So we have been through that. We have also tried, like, so like I mentioned early on, uh, some of our work like became noticed on Twitter, and we started to uh, build a network at that point and going to conferences and everything. But when we were a larger team at Uncommon, we realized that Twitter or any social media wasn't a platform for us at all, because we are being followed by, and our network was people who had already worked with us once. So we didn't need to tell them, or if we put out a tweet, hey, if you have something interesting, reach out to us, wasn't really reaching the right people, because the people who saw it were already like they knew about us, they knew about our work
Hmm.
and everything. So even that happened where looking for work on Twitter kind of didn't work out at all. uh, I have tried going to conferences, like writing long, really long case studies. I've pretty much tried everything, and despite everything, in the end, I don't know where the next plan came from. Like you tried everything, and it just serendipitously happened. Uh, but writing or doing anything, I think it might have helped it over a long term. Whereas your writing was went to more eyeballs, like it gained more eyeballs. People then knew about you a little bit, and then they reached out at a later point saying, hey, we probably read about that or something like that.
But you won't get an immediate response to writing,
Not
right?
at
In
all.
the sense, because it
To
is a long
nothing.
term thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
To
people will
nothing.
discover you through something that you've written a year back or 2 years
Yeah,
back,
yeah.
and you've already passed that dry spell by then.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, which is why, like, you do anything during the dry spell to get rid of that dry spell is not going to probably not going to result into business, right? It's which is why I said before also, like, I would more focus on what I didn't do before, when in the previous dry spell, and those are the things
Hmm.
I want to do probably now when we don't necessarily need a lot of work coming our way. So yeah, but
Right.
to your question,
I
like
think
we, huh, we
this is
we so we
absolutely right.
see,
How
yeah,
what you
yeah,
do at this point of time when you are in a good spell dictates what your next dry spell. It's like almost like when there is no third wave, what you're doing right now dictates how long or bad the third wave is going to be. It's something. It's very much like that, no? Because
yeah,
there are a couple of things we have done. Definitely have faced dry spells multiple times, and if I look back, one of the biggest reasons I believe today that we have had dry spells is because we were a two-person organization for the longest time. Both of us would be doing a project and no one
right,
is taking care of business development.
yeah, yeah,
Basically everyone is completely overlooking. So we have this really rosy romantic time of 6 months when we are doing this project and we are saying, no, we don't need your work, no, we don't need your work. And then by the time you're end of the thing, then everyone thinks like, you are this super busy company, there is no point in approaching you. And we are like, shit, where will my next paycheck come from? So we have had this thing so many times now, and whenever we would have that thing, few things that we have done is write to our peers, our collaborators, that hey, we are available. We have even tweeted it out that hey, we are
Yeah.
available in the past. uh, uh, the one significant thing that we had done back in 2017 was uh, we basically took the risk of saying that we are going to go to an international conference, this period, and we know that this is the place we want to go in because we work in this technology and all. So I basically I applied for the US visa. I luckily got it, otherwise I don't know where my career would have gone. I flew to that conference and made very good friends. Now, I don't think that that conference gave me work, but I think that conference gave me, like, I went to that conference and I was lucky to go walk into that space where everyone was like somewhere around, like no one was a superstar, everyone was like finding new work and all those. That kinds of makes you feel okay, you are not the only person without work, and you get that reassurity, and you just have a conversation. And there are a couple of things, that one small thing that we decided to do a gig together, someone in the US and us, that kind of helped us a little bit. So all those things happen, and then slowly, obviously, our past writing and past work and past things by then had caught on, basically to give us the next set of leads. But after that, we kind of broke our roles in a way where I said that okay, you take care of the project execution, I will not take care of project execution, because there's so much other things to do other than just doing the project that you're doing in the first place. And I think that has made things a little better, because then I'm getting to constantly focus on okay, what, where do we put ourselves out next, where do we put, and we keep doing that, and we probably reap the benefit 1 year down the line. So probably my today's the project that I'm going to start about 3 months from now, which is kind of gives a sense of that someone is actually willing to book us out like 3 months ahead of time, is a conversation I've had for the last 2 years. And if I was doing a project in between, I wouldn't have had the bandwidth to have a 2 year long conversation and relationship building in a way. So I think that kind of has also helped in the longer run so far. But definitely in the same boat, seen enough down and can't be very confident that the next valley won't come in. Uh, so let me take this conversation to you, Tanya, and with this, I'll also start taking audience question, because I see a question directly for you. So maybe you can touch upon this point a little bit. Dry spell, have you faced it? Have you? What have you done to overcome it? And then I can take a audience question after that.
Yeah, definitely. I think my longest dry spell was probably after I came back to India after the master's program. And I was just like, okay, now what? What do I do? And that was deeply scary period of time, because I had this loan I had to start paying off, and it was just a lot of reality checks that were coming at me really fast. Um, what sort of I sort of slowly got out of that. Of course, I mean, I'm here today, but also what I've realized is I do have dry spells in between projects, in between design projects, but because of the different interests that I have, the different ways that I explore type, I will sort of use that dry spells to research stuff. So while I'm also building, like reaching out to people and pitching stuff, I'm also, you know, actively researching on this one topic that I'm deeply interested in. I'm also educating myself, like going and studying specific things or brushing up on topics that I had learned in that master's program, but that time I was brand new and now I have more context and more understanding. So going and relearning those things, which then will feed back into whatever I do next. And it's not like I have this whole board figured out and I know exactly where my next step is. But I think it's kind of like having sown different kinds of crops that will, you know, that you harvest at different points of time. So it kind of becomes like that, and which is helpful because I don't have a team either to sort of go out and look for new projects. So this sort of the research will maybe translate into an article a couple of months down the line. Typeface design projects are long and sometimes never ending. So they help me pace myself in between all of these projects as well. So it's a sort of ecosystem. I think that's why I enjoyed the multiple different things I get to do, because it keeps me interested, but it also has me doing something or the other at different points in time. Not all of them will always make me money, and I'm okay with that. I tend to have a cushion from the previous project that will allow me to go over a little bit, and by the time I'm not focused on the dry spell because I have something else keeping me engaged. It's at the back of my mind, and I am stressing about it. But it's I try and not like get sucked into it, because that would not be great either.
Okay, full respect to Tanya and Tejas. When they are in a dry spell, you are actually investing in your own upskilling and writing articles which will reap the benefits. Because at that point of time, I am like shitting in my pants, like, shit, I need to do something right away. And future investments, oh, forget about it. We have to do something now. But anyways, full respect for that. So Tanya, let's take this question for you. So this is something that Kalapi has written. What do you think are
Yeah,
the biggest barriers to typeface design commissions in India, especially after the initial inquiry?
money. um, yeah, I mean, it comes down to that essentially, where people have been super excited, and then they're like, "Sorry, this is too expensive." And this is me not charging an exorbitant rate and thinking that, oh, I have, I'm sort of scaling it down because I understand they're not a large company, and even then it's too expensive. Um, and yeah, that has got me thinking about, is it unfair to charge that kind of money? Like, I, I don't I don't think they don't want to pay for the value of it, because a lot of them have come back to me after I said that, oh, would you like to negotiate? Maybe we can look at a reduced character set, which would then reduce the amount of work I'd have to do for a project. And they're like, no, I really like your work, and I want to do this, but I will come back to you in the future. And I'm hoping they're not polite. It didn't sound like they were being polite and brushing me off. But I mean, they want the full thing, but they also don't have the money to pay for it at that moment. But this has me thinking about what would be an amount that would be comfortable to pay. What might be, a contract we could figure out different permutations and combinations for licensing a typeface, and how that might work out for an Indian market. Because, I mean, yeah, it's great to get paid in dollars and pounds and euros, but I mean, I'd like to do a lot more work with Indian scripts, and that's if that's coming from abroad, then people are not possibly going to be able to afford it in India. So I have been thinking about how that can be feasible and sustainable for an Indian market, and which also means figuring out, will designers pay and how much will they pay. So maybe a survey is going to come out in the future. But yeah.
All right. Any of the other two, have you done typeface design at all over here? Do you want to any inputs on this? Okay, let me go on to the next question then. Okay, so Pratik has asked, do any of you have a social media or whatever channel you depend on strategy? Who will take this question?
I mean, I
There's a
don't.
lot. I think this answers the question. But
Yes.
Rahul had started. So yes, go on.
No, I don't have a social media, but like I was just like over the course of this conversation only, I was thinking about the whole word of mouth thing. And I suppose the only dependable strategy, I mean, I don't know if it's even a dependable strategy, but like the only thing that I could discern was that founders and designers, right? Like those are the guys who get me the most like quality leads. So like designers who pass on work to me, and founders who are part of networks where other founders are looking for work. So
Hmm.
and everybody else kind of is in a tier below them. That's the only thing that I would say is it's not even it's not strategy implies it's intentional. It's just something that I realized right now, and that's
Accidental in
that,
a
yeah,
way. That
yeah.
Tanya, Tejas. I think Tanya's one
Uh,
of the strategies clearly this rely on Twitter more than Instagram.
yeah, I like Twitter. I mean, I came to Twitter fairly late, but it seems nice enough, even though sometimes it doesn't. I think Twitter is difficult because you have to figure it out. Like, I was on Twitter for the longest time and not active at all. And then I forced myself to tweet one thing a day. Like, this is literally one of, it was a thing I told myself to do in that dry spell when I came back from my master's, because I saw a lot of type community on Twitter and I was like, I need to build more presence and make myself known. And that translated really well. People got to know me. I got to know people. I got to find resources that I would have otherwise missed out on. So yeah, Twitter has been great. Instagram, I, I feel more iffy about Instagram right now than I do about Twitter.
Mm.
Interesting.
So I think every sign about on social media is that if you are a little more active, more people find out about you. Except that I just can't get myself to be active on social media. I just feel so done with social media. But it just feels that I'm having to do because yeah, I have a job to keep, kind of a thing. My enthusiasm for social media has dropped like a lot, but still, without that, I don't know how we'll. Anyone has ever tried marketing or ads or anything like that? No, no experience with this. Okay,
No.
cool. Then let me take this final question, and this can be the. It's a good closing question, I think, for all of us. And once we answer this, I think we can end the conversation. So Nupur asks, at what time do you know that your flow of work or pipeline is stable, and you can run this as a business? Can you talk about that? Who wants to take this on? Very nice question, I would say.
Sorry,
Tejas,
do
I
you
think
want to
you
go
should start.
first?
I think you should start. Okay, should I
Yeah.
start? Okay.
Yes.
I don't feel that a business necessarily is a stable thing. That is how I have known, and I figured it out. And I think at the my answer to this is that you can run it as a business when you can handle uncertainties. If you cannot handle uncertainties, I think you're better off doing a job or have a clear monthly paychecks. And so I feel that my take on this question is that it does not connect well in my own mind, because in one side it's trying to say get some certainty about pipeline, get some certainty about who about your own team as well. Like, people move on from your team, that also can happen. Government regulation changes, another thing happens. Internet goes out, another thing happens. Like, there is, yeah, like, I also remember for multiple back to back week calls I had with Tejas, we started off with, what are you doing? Firefighting. What am I doing? Firefighting. So that is what we've been kind of doing as a part of running business. There is also a fun element in that and all. But anyways, but I think it's a constant. Also, on the flip side, it's a constant endeavor to have a stable pipeline. So you are always working towards it, but you never reach it. So I think that's how I can summarize my thoughts. So Tejas.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you said. And that stability, or what really counts as stability in the pipeline, will also vary from one company to another, and the length of projects that they are taking. Like, for a very different company, it could be 1 year long pipeline, right? They are a large company and they take up projects which run like 6 months to 1 year, and that might be their stable pipeline. Versus someone like us, where our standard engagements are between like 12 to 16 weeks or something. So if we have that, then we consider that it a stable pipeline. uh, like you said, like, dealing with uncertainties and actually being comfortable with it, to sort of having a Stockholm syndrome sort of relationship with uncertainties, where you can't live without uncertainties. That is the part of like running this business. I think I've gotten to that point where if things are certain, I start to feel very fidgety. I don't like that state anymore. But very first time when I decided that this can become a business, was when we had a project that we had, like, uh, which was going to run for 3 months, and we said, okay, this gives us enough runway, kind of work runway, etc., etc., so we can probably turn this into a business now. that has happened once, and that was the decision making. Since then, I feel like you said, pipeline could be very feeble. What looks stable now may not end up being very stable later. So as long as we have something for 2 to 3 months, some work for 2 to 3 months, we just try to look beyond that. And beyond that, for most of our clients, they are not really willing to wait for you to become free, right? So then in that case, you don't really have a pipeline also, because anything that comes to you is like immediate. You want to start next week or in 2 weeks. So, and you have to turn that down, which means you don't really have a pipeline per se. You have work for now, but not really a pipeline that's waiting for you. So yeah, I don't think
I must
we have
add,
cracked that.
Tejas, I'm trying to change that in my own business and my own conversations. That basically, I do remember like about 6 years back or 7 years back, we had put the statement on our website: we are available immediately as a
Right.
thing. So just reach out to us. And then I felt that that was terrible. Like, I don't want to deal with this. That I'm because it's so reactionary in a way. So at this point of time, every conversation I have, I just tell, always keep a heads up, like lead time. We will need a few months to start your work. It's not, we can never be available immediately. If you need something immediately, and if we don't have something lined up 2 months down the line or something like that, we start planning something internal or something else that we can do 2 months down the line, so that the next thing we take is a little after that only.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that immediate reactionary work has always like bit us. Like, you'll
Mm.
start your own personal thing, and then suddenly a project will come in. Stop, client work has come in, money is coming in, stop your internal work and go for that. And that, all that has like bit us in the past, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
That is has been my thing. Tanya and Rahul, any closing thoughts related to this? And Tanya, there are a couple of comments that Kalapi had also made, if you want to just respond to that, where he disagrees that there should be a significant down pricing, and he's able to offer the same quality of work as any Western studio. So why should he be down pricing as a thing?
Okay. I mean, I'll first respond to the pipeline,
Yeah.
where I basically agree with you. I think there is, if you're coming to, if you're going to run, whether it's a business or an independent practice, um, you can't come and do this if you're looking for stability. If that is the goal that you're looking for, then maybe this is not for you. Or you will have to maybe compromise on the kind of work that you're doing. There'll be something that you'll have to kind of give up on. So, I mean, that I'm okay. My overheads aren't that high, which allows me a lot more flexibility with a lot of things. Yeah, and I like this. The flexibility also allows me to do a lot of different things. So you have to look at it from both ways. That, this instability can also translate into flexibility of the kind of projects that you're doing, which I deeply cherish, and I enjoy that part of it. And as much as those dry spells make me consider, do I want a full-time job? That's like a 5 second thought, and then it evaporates, because I'm like, I enjoy this too much to be able to do a full-time job. Um, Addressing Kalapi's question, I mean, I think
I'm, yeah,
this
yeah,
is
you
a
don't have to
conversation we've
necessarily
had.
answer, but
Yeah,
if you have any comments around it, and then you can make that.
I agree, and I agree with what Kalapi says. I have not taken up any such jobs or not reduced my prices as yet, because it still feels unfeasible to me. And I'm like, if I agree to this, then how do I bring my price back up again? So there's
Yeah.
also that conversation happening in my head. So while I do agree with Kalapi, this is a conversation we've had at Super Stampish, where it's also difficult to find Indian clients willing to pay that Western price. Which,
Yeah.
if if your quality is that good, then maybe your clients might only come from the West. And how do you change that? And
Yeah.
maybe the answer is not to reduce your price. Maybe there's some other answer to it. Maybe it's reducing the offering you give them. You reduce what all your what all your services providing for them. So they have a I mean, I think Kalapi already does this, where you don't offer a complete license. Like, they don't buy the whole design, so you can sort of sell it
Yeah.
as your own in your own library later on. So all of these options are available, but maybe you have to also think about the fact that not all multinationals might want a typeface design. Maybe it's a small company, maybe it's a branding agency that designed a logo for a small, establishment. Maybe it's a, I don't know, restaurant, or maybe it doesn't have to be this large conglomerate that has these demands. And is it fair to charge a price to them that you might be charging a larger company? And what is sustainable for that small space? And that could be something that I see myself being able to fulfill, as opposed to being able to answer a larger company's needs.
Right, let's take up this thing in a separate conversation, because it's a very interesting thing that can you charge the same thing to everyone? The purchasing power is different. Some are commercial, some are non-profit, some are at very different stages. So we do have differential pricing, and I think we should have this as a separate conversation altogether. Rahul, any closing thoughts to this comment by Nupur before we close it?
No, I think everybody sort of addressed all that I have to add, and I could like recommend that the previous episode that we had done, we had actually spoken quite a bit specifically around this, and if there's anything of value to be had there, you can go and take a look at that.
Yep. All right. Thanks a lot for this conversation. It has been one of the longest chats I've done, but I was enjoying it, so I kept going on and on. I believe some of you would have personal commitments after this, so we should end this now before people get just zoned out of this. So thank you, Tanya, for joining us. Thanks, Rahul, for joining us the second time, and we would like to have both of you in future episodes as well. Tejas, thanks a lot again for sharing things very candidly and absolutely honestly, saying that I've had terrible dry spells, which is which was kind of the thing that we wanted to do. This is the reality of things, so why just cover that a bit up. And to all the audience, and thanks for asking questions, and thanks for tuning in live on a long weekend. When I at the beginning of this conversation, I think maybe there won't be any live audience, but surprising number of comments by people. So and any of you would want to join us in the future in future conversations, or if you would like to give us ideas about what should we have in our future conversations, please tweet out to us and reach out to us on Two Studio Heads. You can also leave a comment on the YouTube video. Thanks a lot. Thanks for giving your Saturday morning. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Fun.
Thank
Thank
you,
you for having us,
everyone.
Ovid.